Thanks for having a look at the Summit Retirement Plan. The difference between having a plan and not having a plan or having a bad plan could really mean the difference between enjoying your retirement and fulfilling your goals or running out of money early, paying way too much in taxes, really not enjoying the retirement that you want. So today we're going to take a look at this example with John and Susan and how a Summit retirement plan works and how it can really help them, but also anyone, with really dialing in their plan and their strategy for their financial situation, their goals, their preferences. Because keep in mind, everyone's situation is unique and everyone's goals and preferences are unique to them as well. So a plan needs to be customized for you. We can't just use blanket, one size fits all strategies. We need it to be custom. So let's go ahead and take a look at the Summit Retirement Plan and how we help John and Susan. Now, the first step in a Summit Retirement Plan is really getting to understand your financial situation, your goals, and your preferences. And for this example, John and Susan, they have $1 million saved up for retirement, plus their house, which is another 500, so 1.5 million, but really $1 million of that is available for their retirement goals. Now, John and Susan are looking to spend about $7,000 a month, which includes healthcare, their lifestyle, etc. And for income, they have their income from work, which they're going to be retiring in 2 years. They have their Social Security, which if they took at 62, is going to be $3,000 a month each. They're also contributing to their 401ks and to a brokerage account. But let's go ahead and take a look at what their retirement is likely to look like with their current strategy. So this right here is a Monte Carlo analysis. And with their current approach, of spending about $7,000 a month with $1 million saved up right now, retiring in 2 years, taking Social Security at 62, etc. It's looking like about 42% probability of success. Now that's not great, right? Now we could say, look, John and Susan, you guys need to work longer. You're not ready to retire. You need to spend less in retirement. But thankfully, we don't really need to do that. There's many things that we can do first to improve upon their strategy to try to increase the likelihood of success. Let's take a look at the probability of their assets over time with their current approach. You can see that if they don't make any changes based upon the assumptions of the software, it's looking like there's a high chance of running out of money, at some point down the road, depending on how long they live, right? We can't control these things, but let's plan for a long lifespan. Let's plan for success. So the first dial that we can take a look at is the investment strategy. Right now, they're in an allocation. It's about 50-50 stocks and bonds. And without going into the details of the investment strategy we recommended for them, because again, it's going to be custom for everyone. Everyone's going to have a different recommended investment strategy. But for them, we're looking at a growth approach. And with that growth approach, we're instantly improving the likelihood of success. Now, I can't show you the exact numbers on this just because of compliance, but if we were to get together one-on-one and we put this together for you, we'd obviously be able to look at the real numbers, how much better off you could be in your situation. The second thing we want to take a look at, oh, and by the way, with the investment allocation, ultimately what we want is a low standard deviation, which is kind of the volatility, how much of the roller coaster experience you have. We want that to be low in general, and we want to have as much growth potential as possible while having low volatility. With Social Security, we could take that at 62. We could take that as, anytime between 62 and 70. What's the most optimal approach? Well, for their situation, their goals, um, if they take it at 70, it is going to reduce their risk in the longevity area because they're going to have more Social Security for later years, which means less withdrawals from their investments. Between now and 70, they're not going to have that Social Security income, but that's a much shorter time period if they were to live to age 95 and having that greater income from Social Security. So there's ways that we can dial the timing of Social Security to minimize risk, to increase, your goals. If sometimes it makes sense to take it earlier, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes there's a gray area, but ultimately we want to dial that in as best as we can to maximize your goals and the outcome of your scenario. The next thing that we can take a look at is the distribution strategy. Now, this incorporates Roth conversions and the order of withdrawals. If you have a Roth account, an IRA, and a brokerage, those are all taxed in different ways when you take withdrawals. So where do you take from first, second, third? Do you take from all of them at the same time? You take from one and then a combination of another? There's a lot of different ways that we can play around with that. But ultimately, what we want to do is have a withdrawal strategy that's going to minimize taxes and also reduce your overall risk of running out of money. And for their scenario, we've already put together what was best for them. Again, what's best for you may be different. And that really helps with lowering risk and increasing the potential amount of assets that they could have down the road. The last thing that we can take a look at is the retirement spending. So oftentimes people say, I want $7,000 a month of spending. And that's what they take. And they increase it with inflation, of course, to maintain your lifestyle. But they just spend, they assume they'll just spend the same amount every year. But in reality, that's not oftentimes what happens. A lot of the time, people will spend more in the beginning, and then they'll spend less in the middle, and then they spend more at the end. That could be from being more active in your, let's say, your 60s, early 70s, where you're traveling and eating out and just spending more money. And then maybe in the middle there, in your 80s, you slow down. You're not traveling as much. You're maybe not as active, still spending, but not as much maybe. So if we want to spend more in the beginning and less in the middle, and maybe at the end we account for maybe healthcare expenses, things like that, there's different approaches with spending. Some have to do with performance. If you do better with your investments, you spend the extra. If your investments aren't doing as well, you spend less. It depends on your goals, etc. But when we dial that in as well, we can really get a good understanding of what your true scenario could look like, risks and projections with various assumptions. So if we were to really dial this in for John and Susan, now the probability goes from 42% of potentially being successful with the Monte Carlo analysis to 90%. That looks a lot better. And it's 90% success rate is a lot better than 42. And again, this isn't from, you got to work longer and retire later, or you've got to spend half the amount that you thought you would spend. This is just from dialing in some of these important decisions that we have for retirement. So if you'd like to set up a call with me personally, go ahead and click the link below to access my calendar, and feel free to book a time and day that is available and that works well for you. I only have availability for so many appointments each month. So right now it's open and available, but that won't last forever. I do have to turn this off every now and then, but I'm really looking forward to speaking with you and helping you with your retirement and seeing how much better off you could be with the plan. So thanks again, and I will talk to you soon.